I went from a $500 credit card and about a year and a half later to $80,000 in credit. So I went from doing a couple $100s a month on Amazon to $80, $90, $100,000 a month in revenue. We now have our own logistics, our own warehousing, our own in-house employees, so no virtual assistants in Canada. In the States, we actually have a partner with warehouses and third-party logistics that helps us be able to provide a service in both the Canadian and US marketplaces for one cost. We don't have a gigantic team of virtual assistants overseas helping us grow the businesses. Instead, we're doing over 90% of this in-house. So that means the work quality has gone way up. That means when we're using our own warehouses and logistics, we have full control over the day-to-day operations for every single client store. And because we don't have hundreds and hundreds of clients, you can have more of a laser focus on those client stores and thus deliver a better result for every single client store. So instead of charging $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 up front and a $10,000 annual renewal fee, we charge about half that with no annual renewal fee. Separate from the upfront cost of the service, most providers take a minimum of 30%. I know some providers will take more than 50%. That doesn't really make sense to me for you to pay for a service and have to give up more than half. So our maximum is a 60-40. To make money on Amazon, you need to spend money on products. So if we have $30,000 worth of inventory in Amazon over the period of 6 or 7 months, you should be able to do at least $10,000 monthly revenue. Another thing with Amazon is you need to be okay with your working capital being tied up in the business, kind of like investing in stocks or cryptocurrencies. You don't just invest your money and then get it all back. And when H bar goes from 20 cents to 50 cents, if you don't have any money in it, you're not going to make any of those money on those gains, right? You need to have money in the business. It's better to look at it as a term of an investment more so than a business. Even though it is a business, the Amazon business model requires you to be okay with working capital being tied up. With that being said, you don't just want to use high interest rate credit cards only. You want to have maybe a line of credit, or maybe use, in Canada, there's a lot of options. In the States, I know there's even more for people to get zero interest credit cards with like a 12 or an 18 month buffer. So you can tie up all that capital knowing you're not going to pay any interest. I use a mixture of all the above. I use my own cash, I use line of credit, and I also use credit cards. Now my credit cards, I don't have any credit cards with zero interest. They're all like 20%. But for me to do, $10,000 or $15,000 a month profit, and for me to be paying $400 a month in credit card interest, to me, that's cost of doing business. After 6 to 12 months, you can get lines of credit. The more you use that card, the more increases you can get. And this is what a lot of billionaires like Robert Kiyosaki and all these other guys talk about, using debt to make money with. So they're more so talking about real estate by borrowing money from the bank to pay for a real estate investment. And then you would get a passive income. If you're doing rental income, you're making money off that rental income. And you also have an appreciating asset, because today real estate normally only appreciates, even in bad times. So it's a dual investment, but you're actually taking on debt to be able to make that money. So instead of having to use your own money, you can use debt to make money. That's how I started my first Amazon business. Let's say it's the second year. You're doing $10,000 to $15,000 a month profit, and your credit card interest is $500, $600, $700. Is it worth it for you to pay $700 in interest to make $15,000 a month? It's a no-brainer, right? Cost of doing business. But in the beginning, when you're looking at it on a smaller scale, a lot of people have problems understanding, well, if I'm going to be paying $100 in credit card interest to only make $500 a month, is that really worth it? Well, what about if you wait 2 years and you add another zero onto your income by not giving up and having patience, expecting massive results in the first few months or the first 6 months, no matter what you see on social media or when you see other automation service providers saying, I will get you to $100,000 a month in the first 6 months guaranteed with 30% profit margins. It's bullshit. What they're doing is taking products from other clients' stores and loading them all into your store, and it's probably via drop shipping from retailers, which will get you deactivated. So step 2 is to show you some actual results. So let's get to that. This is a brand new client, and this client actually specifically has a very limited amount of working capital. So if you're that kind of person that only has 10, 20, 30K, then these are some of the results, obviously not to expect, it's not guaranteed, but this is like a realistic understanding of how it could be for you for your first year. So this was a client that only had like 15 or 20K working cap for us to work with through the first years. January to December revenue, so the year of 2021 was $80,000 revenue. Now our margins are normally 15 to 25%. 15 to 25% margin on that means they made anywhere from $12,000 to $18,000 roughly. In their first year with limited capital. This is with 1, having patience, 2, having that limited working capital, but understanding and allowing us to do our job and do our best at using that working capital as intelligently as possible. The main strategy for us is we have a massive criteria, the checklist that we go through before we send any product into any client's store, right? So obviously sales rank is a factor, competition, be it competitive prime or non-competitive prime. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, it doesn't matter because we do all the work for you. The number one thing we do for clients with limited working capital is we don't go spending all their working capital on a handful of products. What we'll do is send in 10, 20, 30 units of a product. No matter how good the sales rank is, no matter how little amount of competition there is, no matter how many good factors and good check marks we can check off, we will still try to send in a lower quantity to make sure that product can be proven first and will sell for us specifically. And that is an idea of what you could expect having limited working capital to do in the first year. So if the cost of the investment is $15K, well, this client made $15,000 in the first year with limited working cap. This is a client that started with us a little over a year ago, and I think they had about $40,000 working capital. So in 2021, they did $177,000 in revenue. And if margins are 15 to 25%, you can do the math, right? So they made at least $20,000 to $30,000 in profit in their first year selling on Amazon. Now, again, these are not results you can expect in the first 6 months. It's not something you should expect in the first 3 months. It's a long-term business model that takes time to build, but as you can see, the longer you do it and the more patience you have, the more money you can make. So 2021, this store from January to December 2021, $630K revenue. Margins of 15 to 25% on average. That means they made at least $100,000 to $120,000 profit last year. Building an Amazon business obviously takes time. You need to have working capital is obviously given. You need to be able to have patience as we grow the store. Really big results do not happen in a short period of time. We're not investing in meme coins here. We are building a legitimate business. The only ceiling is how long is it going to take, so we need to have patience, and how much working capital can we add to the business over time and accumulate. As you know, I started with a $500 credit card, and a year and a half later, my bank had given me $80,000 in credit. I had a part-time job. I did not have credit history. I had to do a GIC, so I had to give the bank $500 for them to even give me a $500 credit card. So if you're a person that has a bit of cash, you have a line of credit, or you know you can get one, or you know you can get a larger credit card, or you already have one, you're already in a pretty good position to build an Amazon business. And if it only took me 18 months to go from 500 and no credit to almost $100,000 in working capital, I'm pretty sure you can do the same. And this is with no experience. I had no idea what I was doing 8 years ago. Now I know what I'm doing. What's the risk of using debt to build an Amazon business? Well, if you were dropshipping from retail suppliers, yeah, it might be risky, because if you get your store temporarily deactivated, all the money you had from before is going to be tied up in Amazon. The risk of getting deactivated when selling via Amazon FBA, it's not zero, but it's like 0.1%. So the risk goes that way down, because you're doing what Amazon likes. You're doing what Amazon wants you to do, which is to sell via Amazon FBA. So with that being said, any questions you guys have, please drop them below. Any questions beyond that, you can actually just send me a message on Facebook or Instagram, and I hope you guys have a good rest of your night. Peace out.